The world was turned upside down in 2024. Fear gripped every city across the globe, and people scrambled desperately to survive. Cities fell into chaos as enormous, terrifying monsters descended, their sheer size enough to make hearts freeze. Towering creatures destroyed everything in their path, and even the skies weren't safe as flying beasts wreaked havoc from above. Among the ruins of a crumbling city, a man tried to hide, paralyzed with fear. But nothing worked. His efforts to survive were futile. In the midst of this destruction, a boy dressed in blue stood calmly atop a building, watching the chaos unfold. Unlike everyone else, he showed no fear. Nearby, a brave dog tried in vain to protect its owner from one of the monsters. The boy, without hesitation, leaped from the rooftop. As he descended, an even larger and more menacing creature appeared. Yet the boy remained unshaken. His cold, determined gaze met the beast, and his hand glowed with an intense blue light. With a single punch, he obliterated the creature, a beast so massive its mouth could swallow a truck whole. The sound of his attack echoed through the city, drawing the attention of other monsters. But the boy wasn't done. After saving the child and their loyal dog, he ensured they were safe, though, in this world, nowhere was truly safe. Turning his focus back to the chaos, he unleashed another devastating punch, leveling yet another creature. His sheer power radiated from him, each move a testament to his strength. With blinding speed, he tore through hundreds of monsters, one after another, his energy unstoppable. During one fierce encounter, as he faced down another monster to protect a child and their dog, the boy readied himself for what lay ahead. Just then, the largest monster yet appeared. Its massive paw descended, aiming to crush him. Logic said he didn't stand a chance, but the boy didn't flinch. Nervous yet resolute, he defended himself, his glowing hand cutting through the air with an attack so powerful it seemed to tear the skies apart. As the battle raged, a girl decided to intervene, racing into the fray to help the boy. He recognized her as a worthy ally, and together, they faced the overwhelming threat. This story is about how this epic battle unfolded, and the role the girl played in making it happen. 8 months earlier, life was different. People still went to school, chatting with friends, and going about their days. But Naro, a 19-year-old boy, was always alone. The only attention he got came from bullies who tormented him. One day, during a cruel assault, a bully slapped Naro so hard he fell to the ground. Laughing, the bully sat on him while his friends recorded the humiliation on their phones. The bully sneered, saying he could crush Naro because losers like him were like cockroaches, hard to get rid of. Yanking Naro's hair, he mocked him further, calling him worthless. Everyone at school treated Naro like an outcast, even avoiding sitting near him in the cafeteria. They called him Naro the excluded dog. To survive, Naro relied on a medicine that he carried with him. But one day, another bully kicked him, sending the medicine flying to the ground. As it spilled, the bullies stomped on it, mocking Naro and accusing him of being impotent. They even insulted his late mother, a jab that cut him deeper than any punch. This provocation made Naro angrier than ever before, and for a brief moment, the bullies hesitated. But they quickly shrugged it off and continued tormenting him, laughing at Naro the orphaned loser. The ringleader of the bullies declared that only he had the right to torment Naro, calling him his exclusive loser. To assert his dominance, he attacked Naro repeatedly until he was satisfied. For Naro, the beatings weren't the worst part. What truly frustrated him was the feeling of being trapped in a body that couldn't fight back. He can't fight back. It's like he's sealed, unable to retaliate against anything. Even with all the humiliation, punches, and slaps, he can't fight back. Maybe this is a thing of fate, because his will is to kill them all. They all deserve to die. This look irritates the bully. How dare he look at me like that? A dog should look like a dog. Before he can beat our protagonist more directly, a girl arrives. Seeing this, he completely changes his attitude. This is Lee Luna, a 19-year-old student. The blonde says, "Get out of my way, you're blocking me," and the bully acts all stupid. "I apologize, sorry for bothering you." They give up and say they'll leave because they're getting in her way, and leave saying she can enjoy her way. While she watches the bullies leave, Naro is sitting like a loser. The girl stops in front of him, and she observes for a few minutes without saying a word, until suddenly he gets up without saying anything, head down, and leaves. His medicine, which he wanted to take before, was scattered on the ground, and he didn't even bother to pick it up. Forget about it. But somehow, the girl sees it on the ground and she recognizes it. She is surprised. Later, he watches from the top of the school building as people play ball, happy and carefree. With his mind clouded with frustration, he thinks life is unfair. Why is he so weak? Because everyone can have fun, everyone can talk, and he has no friends. Everything would be easier if he took one more step. As his mind was clouded, a message on his phone. His grandmother asked my grandson, "Are you okay? What do you want for dinner?" This simple message wipes the sadness off his face. He remembers the one person who raised him, who loves him, his grandmother. He remembers all the happy moments. It was better when it was just them. Now that he's grown up and has to come to school, things have become like this. A boy enters the school rooftop and asks what he's doing here. It's forbidden to be in this place. It's dangerous. This person is the only one who talks to Naro, but only when no one is around. Of course, he doesn't want to harm his reputation. Without saying much, Naro just says, "Okay, I'll leave." He goes first so no one sees them together. Returning to his classroom, he's still all dirty and silent, and goes to his desk while the beautiful blonde girl continues to watch him. The other students gather around a table. One of them is showing a video where supposedly a monster was filmed by cameras. This mess displeases the girl, so she leaves the classroom. Everyone thought it was fake, but this video captured something real. That night, monsters began to emerge from the darkness, saying they were in search of the key. In the afternoon, in his apartment, Naro was tending to his wounds. Looking into the mirror, he heard someone entering the room. Quickly, he hid his mirror anointment, pretending to be already asleep. His grandma couldn't talk to her grandson. "Are you awake?" She notices the bandages on the bed and feels sad. Naro then responds that he had already eaten before coming home. His grandma lets him rest and leaves. Behind the door, she realizes that something is wrong. In the room, Naro lifts the covers and reflects on life. What do I do now? At night, in his house, his grandmother is doing the laundry, and she notices a footprint mark on his shirt. What's happening to her grandson for this to be here? This demon creature was in front of this lady's building. His grandmother. A truck approaches. The driver is sleepy. Upon observing the strange creature, saying, "I need this." The next day, in the morning, a grandmother is preparing food for her grandson. Naro observes her face is bruised. How can he hide this from his grandmother? How to make sure she doesn't find out? His grandmother tells him to come to the kitchen to eat. He says he's not feeling well. This is when he hides his face. Naro says he'll take a shower before eating. Before entering the bathroom, the intercom rings. Someone is calling, saying it's a delivery. His grandmother asks who it is. Naro replies it's a delivery person. Goes to the bathroom. His grandma goes to the door worried. She observes. Her grandson Naro in the bathroom takes off his shirt. Many bruises are all over his body. When the shower is turned on to take a bath. Now in their room, the shadowy mailman enters and approaches his grandmother. It was the monster from before, with monstrous and giant eyes. His grandma was scared. The monster opens an infernal mouth, and a terrible tongue comes out of his mouth and almost hits the lady. Meanwhile, Naro hears nothing due to the noise of the shower. His grandmother fell to the ground and was about to be killed. However, she dodges once more. The helpless lady now looked like someone else. In her hand, she manifests a red power, which seems to be blood, restraining the creature. The monster trap tries to free himself, but the lady is stronger. Now looking anything but helpless, the lady says, "I warned you not to come after him." The trapped monster screams, "I need the key. I need the key." Then, in its frenzy, it struggles. Its arms fall, but it is freed. With its attacks, the furniture in the house is destroyed. The noise was so loud that even Naro noticed something. He turns off the shower and tries to hear better what is happening. Outside, his grandmother is immobilizing the monster by its neck, preventing it from making more noise. Realizing there were no more noises, he turned on the shower again and returned to bathe. Then the duel begins again. The monster tries to attack, but the lady uses her blood techniques. The lady looks like Spider-Man. The fight continues. Louder noises are heard. Naro thinks something is wrong. He turns off the shower again. Now he goes out the door to check. The monster and his grandmother notice the door opening. He asks Grandma, "Are you okay?" He asks because his eyes and face are covered in soap. He can't look. His grandmother says it's just the noise from the TV. The sound is loud because she's getting older. Doesn't hear well. The trapped monster watches Naro with his eyes covered. His grandma keeps him quiet until the door closes again. When it closed, she turned her eyes to a monster. The creature says, "Even if you keep running like this, it's futile." With anger, Grandma defeats the creature by destroying its head. After it is eliminated, the creature evaporates as if it were smoke. The anger fades from his grandma's face. But the concern somehow remains. In the bathroom, Naro hides a secret. He's not doing well in school. When he returns to have breakfast, his grandma also hides a secret. She's not a normal person. The wound on her face causes her to hide her face from her grandson. His school bruises make his grandson hide his face too. And so, neither of them notices what's wrong with each other. Naro goes to school. As he walks, he notices something wrong with his grandma's expression. For him, it's a lot of effort to keep up with the rest of the class. And today, he was especially weaker. He couldn't even keep up with a run and fell to the ground. The coach notices the student is down and goes to help. As he approaches, Naro observes the sky. As he faints, he has a vision. Abyssal creatures that seem to originate from hell. Monsters and more monsters clustered coming out of buildings in flames. In the depths of a building, a strange figure jumps from beyond into a vortex of water, carrying something, and disappears into the darkness. When Naro wakes up, he's in the infirmary. His head hurts. It's already afternoon. He slept for hours. While thinking that this dream was strange, he received a call on his cell phone. He answers. The lady says that something is wrong. They need to move again. She knows he doesn't like moving so much. But once again, they'll have to move. The reason Naro is excluded is that he never settled in one place. Whenever he entered school, and because he was too weak, he ended up getting hurt, and all the children were blamed for it. Leaving others angry, it led him to be excluded. Without friends, he has always been lonely. And before he could change that, he always moved and had to repeat the process. Years have passed. Now he is a teenager and never knew how to make friends. On that night, his grandmother stayed awake all night to make sure the creatures wouldn't come back. She watched in her grandson's room. Will she be able to keep them away from him for how long? More abyssal creatures emerge from the depths. In various other places, creatures also awaken from the depths of hell. A worker drove his truck passing close to where the monsters came out. Looking up, he noticed a demonic creature in his truck. Terror in his eyes, his truck sways from side to side and hits the road barrier, staying there for a few minutes until several shadow creatures come to the truck. The next morning, the building's doorman feeds a kitten, and a truck is parked in the garage in the distance. As if it had a heightened sense, the animal senses something strange in the truck and gets scared. Running, he hurts the one who was feeding him because of fear of what was behind him. This place is where Naro and his grandmother live. The suspicious movement is noticed by the worker in his building. The truck driver opens the back. Then Naro is at home, having breakfast. This is the day they will move. His grandmother senses some strange presence. Thinking about what this could be, she gets up and says her grandson must go to school earlier. Go now, your grandma has an appointment. Putting him out of the apartment, not understanding what's going on, he goes to the elevator and indicates that he wants to go down the 12 floors. When the doors open, the delivery men are there inside and pass by him. A black smoke gives Naro a strange sensation. This smell somehow affects him, but he doesn't know how. He watches the men go ahead without knowing where they are going. Then he decides to enter the elevator. His thought was, something doesn't smell right. At his apartment door, 2101, the workers ring the bell mischievously. On the other side, the lady is ready for battle. Downstairs, on the street, he passes by and walks in front of the delivery truck. Curious, he peeks inside to see how many deliveries there are for so many workers. But to his surprise, the truck is empty. There are no deliveries here. So why did so many delivery men go up to the top floor? Suddenly, he hears something from above. From the top floor, a person is thrown from the falling heavily onto a tree. He's startled. Is that person okay? Someone just fell there. Worried, he rushes back, takes the elevator to go to his home. Is his grandmother okay? The elevators are not working, so he decides to take the stairs, running up the floors. In his home, the delivery men are attacking his grandma, the lady who contained her powers before. This time, with even more anger, she slices all the creatures with her red threads. These creatures stand no chance against her. But still, the lady is furious. When they are defeated, the creatures dissipate into smoke. Their bodies don't remain. One last monster attacks his grandmother and manages to hit her. Stepping back, she starts using her threads to attack again. But to her surprise, this last monster is not ordinary. Its appearance is different. I personally think it's a Shinigami. Ryuk, is that you? The monster tells the lady that the king's troops are about to arrive. It's no use trying to face them. His grandmother, impatiently, grabs the creature's neck with her threads, hovering over him. She says that this is foolishness. The monster, irritated, attacks his grandma and asks, "Where is the key?" They want the key. The lady, who once seemed invincible, was now being pressed by this creature. With more anger, his grandmother surprises the monster and holds it from behind using her threads. She manages to injure the creature and asks, "Who is the king? Who the hell is the king?" When Naro finally manages to reach the top floor of the building, running up the stairs, his grandma was finishing off the creature. There's no key here. As Naro is very weak, running up these stairs makes his heart almost explode from exhaustion. When he finally reaches his door and tries to open it, but his grandma stops him. She makes him not enter. This moment of carelessness made her be wounded by the creature. The monster pierced its hand into her chest. Naro, behind the door, knocks, insists to enter. His grandma fights back, tearing off the monster's arm. In this situation, the monster presumes that maybe this child is the key. That's why she wants to prevent him from getting closer so much. Upon reaching this conclusion, the grandmother gets irritated and unleashes her power. This confirms the monster's suspicions when she attacks. Holding it by the head, she says that now that he knows too much, he must die. Meanwhile, outside, the doorman sees blood on the trees. Looking up there, a monster approaches through the balcony behind Naro. Your grandmother has just defeated the creatures, and before they disappear, she is worried about her severe injuries. Suddenly, another creature enters with her grandson through the door. Naro, who doesn't know what's going on, asks his grandmother if she's okay. The lady remains silent. The monster asks if this child is important to her. Sana replies, "Leave him alone and I'll go with you." The monster acknowledges that Sana knows of its malice. Threatening the child's safety, Sana displays her powers in front of her grandson for the first time, leaving him astonished. "Grandma, what is this?" Seeing the hesitation in the lady, the monster attacks, piercing and severing her arm. Naro screams for her safety, bites the monster, tearing a piece off. Throwing Naro aside, it strikes her back. Concerned for her injured grandson, Sana moves toward him, lowering her guard, and the monster attacks Sana. In front of her grandson's eyes, his grandmother is pierced. Desperate, he tries to attack, crying, and he himself is also pierced in the chest. The creature has just eliminated both. This certainty is nullified when the monster senses behind it an infinitely more powerful aura than before. Upon closer inspection, it sees that the armless lady is completely different. Extending her hand, thousands of red spikes now converge on the creature. Easily, with a squeeze of her hands, the monster is turned into pieces. Injured and lying on the ground, Naro sees his grandmother, who has just utilized a terrifying power, and he's afraid, but perhaps this would be the last time he would live too. Through the blood, shadows follow until we see fire in the sky with remnants of those same shadows. Monsters and abyssal creatures fly through the sky. Monsters and terrors in endless war with something unknown. Perhaps they were silver knights, these same knights, with the marks that Sana's voice carries. They perish as several monsters are also defeated. In the past, apparently, Sana fled from a place carrying Naro. She fled to Naro, lost in memories he didn't even know he had, feels something coursing through his body, perhaps its power through his veins. His consciousness begins to return, or are these just whispers? In his memories, we discover that he wasn't always weak. He could fight back when provoked. A mother scolded him for hitting her son. Naro knew he was only retaliating and felt unjustly treated. They left, and the feeling of having no one to defend him took over. Grandma. Perhaps regaining consciousness, his grandmother Sana, with her grandson in her arms, sees the wound on his back. With red, teary eyes, she decides to make her last act for her grandson. As she prepares to do something, she says, "The rebels still rule the earth." The breach of this place seems to be widening more and more. She doesn't know where the soldiers of come came from. Manifesting her power, the armless lady says she has no choice. She will return the weapon she took from the little prince and send him to the battlefield. Manifesting a flame in her hand, she returns it to the delicate body. Sana says it's his destiny to have this power. The chains that bound him are broken. His power floods his body. In doing so, she tries to touch him once more, but her body can't take it anymore. This is my end, the chief of the palace guard. Farewell, my grandson. I loved you. Sometime later, perhaps hours or days, we don't know. Naro wakes up and realizes his grandmother isn't there. He's alone in his house. Without memories, he went to the police station to report his grandmother missing. He doesn't know what happened. Naro returned to the police station over and over again to try to gather information and find out what happened to his grandmother. She simply disappeared without a trace. He tries to justify to the police that not only is she missing, but this monster is involved. She was kidnapped, but the police think it's a joke. He's messing with them. That doesn't exist. Frustrated at not being taken seriously, he leaves, returning to his home. Lying on his couch, he tries to sleep, but the memories don't leave. That day traumatized him greatly. Since then, Naro can't sleep anymore, and he also doesn't know if it is a dream or reality. It had been a while. He often returns to the police, now also to the psychologist. They said he was crazy. Leaving the room, a classmate is surprised to see him, asking why he's there. At that moment, he has a bad feeling, but he doesn't know what it is looking at the end of the hallway. He sees nothing. Later, in physical education class, where he's now the strongest and fastest. It's as if he were another person. He doesn't tire. The others can't keep up with him now. The feeling of being watched doesn't go away. He doesn't understand from where. Later, at school, he feels the same sensation. Someone is watching. Trying to figure out who it is, he encounters Lee Luna, a beautiful student from his school. She wasn't following and asked if he needed anything suspicious. Naro says no. Then they walk down the hall together. Curiously, Luna asks about the medicine they always took after class. She doesn't see him taking it. Naro says he feels better now, so he's not taking it. But in reality, he hasn't taken any medicine since that day. Suddenly, Naro jumps out the window and leaves, saying he has something urgent to do, leaving the girl alone. Shortly after, Luna notices other students going down the stairs. The bully, when he sees the girl, changes expression as usual, asking what she's doing. The girl ignores him and leaves. Walking down the hall, she suspiciously says that's good. At night, Naro is on the street, standing, thinking about what happened at school. His body is different. He's stronger. Across the street, he sees Luna working a part-time job. He didn't know she worked here, and it's close to his home, so he thinks about stopping by to say hi. However, a lady behind him was collecting cardboard to sell. That was her job. Naro, being kind, offers to help, thinking the lady resembles his grandmother. For a moment, he was impressed, but then he felt embarrassed. Looking away, he finishes helping and says he's leaving. Meanwhile, on the street, the boys from his school go to the store where Luna works. The girl seems to dislike it. The same boys say they're there to buy drinks and cigarettes, and they're underage, asking Luna to sell to them. With a serious look, she says only with ID. The boys thought she'd given since they were schoolmates, but she refused. Furious, one of them tries to confront the girl. However, his friend stops him, saying the school bully likes her, and if he does anything, they'll have problems. Unable to get what they want, they leave the store. Angry, one of them points out that the lady is homeless. Meanwhile, nearby, Naro was assisting the lady in preparing her cart. The boys go to the homeless lady and offer money for her to buy cigarettes for them. The lady, even though she's poor, refuses, saying boys shouldn't smoke or drink. Because of this, the boys get angry at the lady, saying she should just take the money. Naro finishes with the cart for the lady, and when he returns, he realizes what they were doing. Angry because they were mistreating the lady. The boys recognize Naro as the school idiot. He interrupts and lets the lady go her way. After that, the boys go to him and ask why he's meddling. Is that his grandmother, by any chance? Naro, realizing what they did with the cardboard the lady collected with so much effort, gets angry. The boys find it amusing. Is the weakling angry? They drag him into an alley, saying they'll teach him a lesson. They throw Naro to the ground and say they're ready to beat him, while the bully kicks Naro. The other keeps watch to see if anyone is coming. As he takes more and more blows, something breaks inside him. With each additional blow, something was changing. The blonde kicked his head and felt that something was wrong. Naro grabbed his foot and squeezed hard enough to maybe break it. One of the other bullies noticed something was off and stepped in, shouting, "What are you doing? You're hurting my friend." Naro, meanwhile, seemed completely unaware of himself or what had just happened. He had never acted like this before. Confused and frightened by what he had done, he ran off, thinking to himself, "What's wrong with me?" Near his house, in the park, he began piecing things together. He remembered that night, how he had been fatally injured but somehow survived. Now he felt this strange new sensation, a surge of power that made him feel almost invincible. The next day, Naro returned to school. The bullies from the day before were in his classroom, and one of them, the redhead, seemed particularly uneasy, trying to make sense of what had happened. The main bully, however, wasn't ready to let it go. Frustrated, he stormed up to Naro, demanding answers. "Why are you ignoring me? My friend's hurt because of you. You're going to pay for this." The other students watched the scene, puzzled by the confrontation. But Naro said nothing, sitting there with an eerie calmness. Angered by being ignored, the bully snarled, "What, do you want to die?" Before things escalated further, one of the students tried to diffuse the tension. "Hey, lay off him. Naro's going through a tough time. His grandmother is missing," the student explained. But the bully wasn't having it. He slammed the table, yelling, "Who do you think you are to tell me what to do?" At that moment, Naro looked up, fixing his icy, unblinking gaze on the bully. Something about those eyes, cold and human, made the bully freeze in place. A chill ran down his spine as fear took over. His legs felt like they were glued to the ground. That look, it wasn't just intimidating. It felt like it belonged to someone who could kill without hesitation. Gathering what little courage he had left, the bully turned on his heel and left in silence, trembling. The rest of the class watched in disbelief. One of Naro's classmates whispered, "I thought they were going to fight. But Naro seems so different now. He's not the same person anymore." Later that night, someone walked down the street with a large dog by their side. The dog suddenly noticed someone running nearby and growled, ready to attack. But then, just as quickly, the aggression faded, replaced by fear. The animal cowered, as though sensing something far more powerful than itself. Meanwhile, Naro had been running, heading toward an abandoned building. He needed to test the strange suspicions he had about himself. Reaching the top floor, he found the space scattered with heavy steel beams. Under the pale moonlight, he pulled back his hood and began reflecting on everything that had happened. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. Spotting one of the beams nearby, he decided to test his strength. He crouched down and pushed with all his might, but it wouldn't budge. Maybe nothing's different after all, he thought. But then he noticed something. The steel beam was slightly dented where his hands had gripped it. Determined, Naro tried again, this time with even more focus and force. Suddenly, faint marks appeared on his neck, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Bit by bit, the beam began to lift. He could feel his power awakening, coursing through him like never before. Soon, he held the massive steel beam above his head with just one hand. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the realization of his newfound strength. Breathing heavily, he stared at the beam in awe. He didn't fully understand what was happening to him, but one thing was clear. The bullies who tormented him were now living on borrowed time. If you're intrigued by Naro's journey and want to know what happens next, don't forget to leave a like on this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means everything. Thank you.